Recording in progress.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Moment of silence for our fallen servicemen and women. Thank you. Thank you for all attending tonight's meeting. Those of you who are here in person and via Zoom, we are hoping that the next Board of Trustees meeting will be on October 21st, will be held at Village Hall, which will also hold a Zoom meeting as well. At this time, I would like to express my thanks to the Fire Department for conducting last Sunday's Prevention Day and Open House. The program was very well received and attended. On behalf of the Board of Trustees and residents of the village, a special thank you to all the members of the Garden City Fire Department. As I mentioned at the last board meeting, we have a very talented Village of Garden City resident, Anastasia Pagonis, who represented the United States in the Tokyo Paralympics and set a world record and received the gold medal in the 400-meter freestyle and also won a bronze medal in the 200-meter individual medley. I've invited Anastasia to tonight's board meeting in order to present her with a proclamation from the Village of Garden City and her astounding achievements. Anastasia, would you and your family members please come forward?
Go straight.
Mayor, speak.
Yes, come here, please.
Here, forward. Here, okay.
Go. Perfect.
All right.
Perfect. I'm going to read the proclamation. Whereas the Village of Garden City does desire to recognize outstanding Village of Garden City residents who have rendered significant contributions for our region, and such an individual as Anastasia Pagonis, who represented the United States in the Paralympics in Tokyo. And whereas Team USA swimmer Anastasia, at the age of 17, took home the gold medal at the Tokyo Paralympics, breaking her own world record and winning the first gold medal of the Games for the United States. And whereas Anastasia made her Paralympic debut, winning gold in the women's 400-meter freestyle with a new world record of 4 minutes, 54.49 seconds in her first international swim meet of her career. And whereas Anastasia went on to win her second medal by winning the bronze medal in the women's 200-meter individual medley, finishing in 2 minutes, 45.61 seconds. And whereas the Village of Garden City is honored to recognize Anastasia Pagonis for her dedication and hard work in winning 2 medals at the Paralympics and representing the United States as well as the Village of Garden City, she's a source of inspiration to everyone. And now, therefore, we recognize Anastasia for her 2 medals, and thereof the Incorporated Village of Garden City does hereby present the citation to you. Anastasia Pagonis. Again, congratulations on Anastasia's terrific achievements, and we hope there'll be many more medals to come in the future. Thank you so much. I now call upon the department heads, beginning with Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple items on the agenda tonight. First one I'd like to talk about is number 4, parking management system. Board authorization is requested to accept FPS Parker Solutions as the vendor for the village parking ticket writing system and parking ticket court management system. The village put out an RFP and placed it on the New York State contractor bid site. 3 companies reached out to us and the court and for further information, and 1 FPS placed the bid. The contract has been reviewed by council and the terms and conditions reviewed by risk management. The PD currently uses an antiquated parking ticket writer system where the machines are constantly breaking down and no longer supported by the company. The tickets have to be downloaded into a server and then uploaded into the court system. We currently buy and own all ticket writers and printers. The court uploads the tickets into their current outdated system that is not compatible with New York State court systems. There are constant issues with the payment option, and in some cases tickets are unaccounted for. Reports are printed in OCA data format just to tell you how old the system is. Under the FPS proposal, they will provide all ticket writers and printers to the police, as well as training and support at no cost. They will cover all maintenance costs. We will save approximately $1,350 a month in maintenance costs and an additional $40,000 needed to purchase new updated hardware for the current system. We also calculated we spent about $150,000 over the last 5 years on this on our current program. These ticket writers are more compact and easier to use. The tickets are now downloaded directly into the court system and comply with New York State reporting requirements. It is cloud-based and no longer requires servers and additional savings. FPS will now provide for easier processing of all tickets, including a more robust payment system. The company will also act as a third-party collection agency for all delinquent tickets. They will also file judgment. They will also file judgment on behalf of the village. They do not receive compensation for tickets paid on time or tickets dismissed by a judge. They only receive percentage of monies collected for delinquent tickets. In addition, all tickets are integrated into the new system where FPS can start processing them right away and send out delinquent notices. Numerous local jurisdictions are using FPS, and some of them around this area include Mineola, Hempstead, Lynbrook, Freeport, Glencoe, Floral Park. One village told us they normally have a 70% yearly return rate of their tickets before they had FPS. Under FPS for the first 2 years, they actually had more tickets answered because of their delinquent ticket process, which resulted in an actual more than 100% rate of response. The 4th year was 98%. The court clerk, Greg Catrone, also met with the mayor, deputy council, and court clerk of another village, and they expressed extreme satisfaction with the FPS system. On item number 2, we had 2 persons listed for sick leave. We were advised today that one of the officers has been cleared for duty for tomorrow, so actually we'll have 1. On a side note, I would like to commend 2 NYU medics and 2 officers who responded to a residence on September 29th for a female in labor. The female was stabilized, placed in the ambulance, and attended to by the medics while an officer drove the ambulance and the other officer provided an escort. The medics delivered the baby inside the ambulance and the officer safely transported him to the hospital. I've been advised by NYU that the mother and baby are doing well. It's a job well done by all involved. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Chief Mooney, you're up next. And by the way, Chief, happy birthday.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I have nothing on the agenda tonight. I just want to thank everyone who attended Sunday's Fire Prevention Day. It was a huge success for all. I just want to remind everyone that this week is National Fire Prevention Week. So check the Facebook page and the website. We'll be giving out safety tips all week. And I just want to remind everyone, just please check your smoke and carbon monoxide detectors monthly. We have seen a rise in alarms of residents with non-working or out-of-date detectors lately. These detectors are your first line of defense to alert you and your family at your home or business. So keep that in mind, and especially with daylight savings coming next month, it'd be good to change the batteries as well.
Thank you, Chief.
That's all there.
Thank you.
Chief, just wanted to thank you and the whole department at the Fire Commissioner for a job well done on Fire Prevention Day. Not only for the children, but for the parents. So job well done, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Village Treasurer Irene Wu, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and trustees. On the agenda tonight, I only have item number 1, which is board authorization is requested to transfer funding from the termination reserves for a police aide who left village service.
And the amount of the money is,
It's $5,673.33.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Is Building Superintendent Giuseppe Gianelli here?
He's on Zoom.
I think he's on Zoom, Mayor.
Good evening, Mayor. How's everyone? I don't have anything on the agenda tonight, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions the board may have. Hope everybody's doing well.
Thank you. Recreation Commissioner Paul Blake, how are you this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. Terrific and good to be here. I have nothing on the agenda, but I do have a nice little trinket to present to the board. From the Arbor Day Foundation, in recognition of Garden City's 30th year as Tree City USA, they presented us both with a flag, which is now flying over Village Hall, and a nice plaque that could probably be displayed someplace that Mr. Swazi would find. So 30 years is quite an achievement, and we have already started the application for this year as well. And that's all I have this evening.
I thought it'd be on a piece of wood.
Way to go, Paul.
Thank you so much. Mr. B?
Thank you, Mayor. This evening I actually have an item, a specific item on the agenda, and the board will note a proposed settlement agreement of a piece of litigation. We have briefed the board in executive session already on this item, but if the board has further questions or wishes to discuss it, we would recommend another executive session. There is always the possibility the court will not approve the settlement, though we hope that they will, but if they were to not approve the settlement, then the matter would go back into litigation, and I would not want to have put on the public record the reasons why we are recommending for, etc., with respect to the settlement itself. However, it does call for a payment by Covanta to the village, not the other way around, so we would receive a check for $250,000 under the proposed settlement, which remains subject to the court approval. If the board has questions, as I indicated, my senior associate, Andrew Preston, is here, who's been involved in that litigation, and we are prepared to respond to any such questions.
Thank you very much. Village Administrator Ralph Swazi.
Before we go there, Mayor, I'd like to ask Mr. B a question. Peter, I got a copy, as the rest of the board did, of your letter to PKAD. Do you have any idea, or can anybody tell me when we anticipate that study to be finished so that we can bring this to a conclusion?
I cannot at this time predict when that will be done. I believe that the village administrator is currently making a recommendation as to which of the responding reviewing companies should be selected to conduct that review, but I don't have a timeline for you.
Ralph, can you give me an idea of when those folks will be selected, and can you give me an idea after they're selected how long it will take before they can finish their conclusion?
Trustee Delaney, I reached out to 3 law firms and 5 engineering firms. The law firms, two of the law firms that were given to me refused at this point to be involved. They think we need to get a review by peers first, architectural peers review. So after that review, we may or may not end up in litigation, at which point we would bring them in. A 3rd law firm said the same thing that Mr. B and I located on the internet. They reached out to 5 engineering firms. One of them was not interested. The other one said it's not their line of work, but they gave me another institution called Greyhawk, who actually, this is their line of work, and they also worked for one of the law firms that I contacted, had done work in the past for them. I'm still waiting for estimates from D&B engineers, and I have another one from Cameron Engineering for about $9,000. So once I get D&B's, I'm going to send them all to the board for review, and I expect to have something on the October 21st agenda. And in Greyhawk's response, they said they need about 2 weeks. So the earliest will be 2 weeks. I didn't get that same commitment from the engineering firms, but I don't think it's a long and complicated review process.
Ralph, can you just describe to the audience what this issue really is about?
So the issue is that the village enter into an arrangement with a engineering firm to develop, it's called D&D, Design and Development Documents for the Edgemere Firehouse on Stewart Avenue. And that agreement called for an expenditure, it was a total bond of $500,000, or expense of $500,000, bifurcated into two spends. The first spend of $300,000 was to prepare documents up to a 60% development stage, which could be used to determine an order of magnitude number if we were out to bid. Basically a very reliable estimate, square footage estimate. During that process, there was a change to the contract requested by the fire department because of the inclusion of a larger piece of apparatus, a ladder truck. That increased the $300,000 spend to an additional $42,000, or a total of $342,000. So at the end of this process, they were about maybe $25,000 away from completing that task in their estimation. I had asked them to halt further work, deliver the product, and give me a final bill, as I believe the village is heading in a different direction. So the question that is on the table that we're wrestling with is, did they perform the work as per the requirements of the contract with the village? And if not, how far short did they fall? We're trying to figure out what we should be paying them based on the work product delivered. And we need a professional architectural peer review to help us make that determination a realistic, reliable, and a verifiable determination.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I actually have a question. So the total amount is $317, and did they give you an idea of what the estimate would be for the third-party review? Like what the cost would be to us?
The third-party review estimates I have so far from Cameron Engineering for slightly under $9,000. The second proposal is from Greyhawk at $12,000. And I'm waiting for DeVerk and Bortolucci. As I mentioned, the other two engineering firms, one didn't want to be considered, and the fifth one gave me Greyhawk because they didn't do that. That was the work they redirected me. The two law firms I talked to said that at this point you need the peer review, and then as things unfold, you may or may not need us, depending on what the conclusion is. And I had the same opinion from a third law firm. And the outstanding invoices is not the $342, it's only for $175. Not only like it's a small amount of money, but we've paid a portion already. It's $175 that is outstanding and in question of the $342.
Any other questions? Okay. Ralph, can you give us your overview?
Yes, I first want to join the mayor and board in wishing Chief Moody a happy birthday. So it's only a couple items on the agenda this evening. Item number 5, the rehabilitation of monuments. I tried to squeeze this in at the last meeting, and I apologize for that last minute entry. But basically, this is just to ask that the wording of this capital project, which is from the prior year's budget, this is to rehabilitate some of the monuments around town. The one at Osborne, the World War II monument, one at Osborne, the fire department monument over here next to Village Hall. And when we did the budget description back then, I put approximate dollar values for each of the items in there. But when you actually do the work, the dollar values may be less or more. So I'm just trying to, I'd like the board to help me modify the description to say approximately, so that the dollars stated in the existing description don't hold me up in the purchasing department if I go a dollar over it. So it's really just a clarification of language to make it to be the estimate that it was meant to be. And also, in the original language, I did not include language for repairing or installing flagpoles or additional lights, so that's the addition. So this is really not a funding request, it's just a language modification to give me the flexibility that was originally intended that did not make it to the original description. The second item streetlight poles, luminaires, and accessories. The bid for streetlight poles, luminaires, and accessories deals with dozens of individual components that are needed to maintain our network of streetlights. The board is being asked simply to reject the bids when the item does not meet specifications and to award the bids to items that both meet specifications or the lowest available bid price. Basically, the village maintains a supply of these components that are competitively bid, and our contractor, Anchor Electric, they charge us just for the labor to install it. We supply them the inventory, they install for us, they bill us for the labor involved with that. So this is a contract we bring up yearly. And I couldn't describe all the items, but they're in the backup materials. And one other item, which is not on the agenda, but I'd like to make the board and the public aware of it. At this year's NICOM, that's the New York Conference of Mayors Convention, the Village of Garden City was awarded the G. Jeffrey Haber Leadership Award by Comp Alliance. The Comp Alliance is the village's workers' comp insurer. Garden City is the first village on Long Island to receive this award. The award is in recognition of the village's commitment to safety and diligence in handling workers' comp claims. The award was recognized with the trophy and also a loyalty check of $35,000. I wish to congratulate Courtney Rosenblatt, who heads the HR team, and her team for the work that drove this recognition, as it shows the commitment to providing our employees with a safe environment, timely and accurate reporting of workers' comp claim filings, and continued improvement and evaluation of current processes. Congratulations, Courtney. And that's all I have right now, Mayor.
Thank you.
I have one quick question, Ralph. Someone was asking us about, John and I, about the light poles on Franklin Avenue. Is that in this bid, or is that bid already completed? And they were wondering the approximate time frame that
So the large light poles on Franklin Avenue, of which are approximately 106, give or take, they are an item in our competitive bid contract for Anchor Electric. They're one of the items we bid on, but it's not work they do unless we ask them to do it. We have asked them to do that at a price of approximately $29,000. It's about $230 a pole, $115 for the top half, $115 for the bottom half. There was a paint supply issue, COVID related. They started painting it last Thursday, I believe it was, and our engineer went out there and checked on the paint specifications, and the paint they were using, although it's a quality Benjamin Moore product, it's not the best product with exposure to sunlight. There is a industrial product that is it's supposed to be equal. We asked for a product that was not sensitive to sunlight or equal. You know, and by law we always put an or equal in the contract. So they substituted, but it was the wrong product. So they're now they've halted. We stopped them last week, and we asked them to find an equivalent product that meets the specifications we asked for. I asked the engineer about it today. He told me they're working on it. I expect they'll have an answer within 24 to 48 hours, and then the work will commence as long as the supply is there. So I will update the board via email and publicly at the 21st meeting for the public, but I don't have an exact answer when they're going to start now. Once they start, they should be able to do about 10 polls a day, so I'm thinking it's a 2-week project, weather permitting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph.
Mayor, I have two issues that I'd like to bring forward. One is I'd like to see us try to schedule a public hearing on marijuana and the regulations that take effect. I believe we have until December 31st to opt out of having marijuana stores. And I'll just use the broadest terms. There's some differentiation of various things, but I would like to see us have a public hearing on that so that if we decide that we should opt out, that public hearing can be held and we can come up with an appropriate law. I think the village attorney has already started to work on that. The problem is that if we don't opt out and we don't like the regulations that the state is going to put forward, if we don't opt out, we don't have a chance after December 31st to opt out. If we do opt out and the regulations and the way it's going to operate suits our convenience and we think it's okay, we can always rechange the law and have shops back in Garden City. But I think to protect ourselves, we need to, my personal opinion is we need to opt out, but I think we have to have a public hearing. So I would hope that either at our next meeting or in one of the November meetings that we would have that public hearing so that we would have enough time to comply with the December 31st date, where if we are going to opt out, we have to. That's number one. Number two, I know there's been some emails back and forth among trustees as well as our staff with regard to sidewalk repair. Again, I think it's something that I don't think it's appropriate for tonight's discussion, but I would hope that either at the next meeting or the meeting thereafter that we could have a brief discussion on sidewalk repair. If you might remember back in, I think it was May or June, I raised the issue of having our residents pay for repairs caused by village trees. That's one issue. The second issue that I would like our staff to look at is there a way that sidewalk squares can be repaired rather than replaced at a lesser cost to the residents and to ourselves? So I would hope that both of these issues, both the marijuana issue and the opting out of that, or the potential opting out, and also the sidewalk repair, that we could have a hearing within the next 2 or 3 meetings so that we can come to some conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Delaney.
Mayor, can I make one more comment about my agenda item?
Sure.
If you look at agenda item number 6 at the bottom, it says all items ought to be ordered on an as-needed basis based upon unit cost for an approximate cost of $66,000. I just want to add some clarity to that. We usually spend approximately $60,000 to $66,000 on these items each year. Right now, the budget only has $18,000 in it. That is because the material and supply lines we use to fund this particular item is also used for things like the new speed signs we're putting up on New Hyde Park Road and the ones we ordered for Stewart and Rockaway. So this line item has been depleted in the budget. I will be coming back to the board either on the 21st or in the first November meeting to ask for a transfer. I didn't put it on this agenda because I wanted to make sure I had the math right. So we can fund what we need right now with the $18,000, but I will need to stabilize this line item because we will run out of money otherwise.
And Ralph, can you also discuss for a few minutes, what have you done so far with the sidewalk repairs? I know we've discussed this now several months ago.
So I had the engineering team and Mr. Giovanello sit down to talk about 2 aspects of the sidewalks. Trustee Delaney just mentioned one, which is ways of repairing the sidewalks versus outright replacement that are acceptable in New York State, acceptable ways of doing that. So you could maybe use an epoxy to fill in some cracks. You might be able to shave the sidewalk down 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch so it's in compliance without ripping up the whole flag. So these things have been drafted. I received a copy of the draft today from the engineer. Another thing we looked at, Mary, your specific request was what other materials could we use to try to prevent the roots from spreading. So the applications, and I'm not an expert on this, and I want, Mayor, when we meet the next week or 2 on these topics that are orbiting around us, I want to discuss this with you, but if you have a new application for a tree, we can, besides choosing a street-friendly tree with Mr. Blake's team, we could also put things around, barriers around the root system so it directs them down and away from the sidewalks. But there are other measures. There are new materials that can be used, rubber type of compounds that will stretch and give, but they have problems as well in certain applications because while it might not crack the sidewalk, it'll stretch with the root that's growing. Now you have an ADA compliance issue that might evolve. So there's no simple solution. There are other solutions like making the new flag much heavier and denser so the root can't break through it. It gets redirected on its own. It raises the expense. So we are ready to discuss these things globally. I do have a document. I can send you the drafts if you'd like to see them, man.
Well, when we meet, we'll discuss that.
Yes, we will.
And on the public hearing for marijuana, Peter, do we have to have a referendum?
No, sir. The procedure is that a draft local law would be prepared, and I have such a draft should the board wish to review one. A public hearing would be held on the pros and cons of adopting such legislation, and the board would be free thereafter to adopt it. The legislation would actually indicate that the village opts out of the current state permission for stores, retail sales of marijuana, and on-premises consumption of marijuana or cannabis products. And the village is free to repeal that law the following year or any other year should it choose to do so. But if it doesn't pass the law by December 31st, you are then required to allow retail stores and on-premises site. The law is subject to what's referred to as a permissive referendum. So it is not a mandatory referendum, but a permissive referendum should citizens circulate a petition and choose to challenge it.
Thank you.
One question if I could, Mayor? Yeah, Peter, just for the sake of the residents in the audience tonight, could you let them know what towns have opted out so far?
Oh boy, I don't have the list in front of me, but most, all of my other village clients have opted out, and most of the surrounding villages, my recollection is...
Town of Hempstead, I think, is opted out.
Yes, but also, Mary, I think you sent me a couple of, do you have that list in front of you? Because I checked and every one of them has opted out.
I know New Hyde Park was,
New Hyde Park,
Floral
Mineola,
Park,
Floral Park, Flower
I
Hill,
think Franklin Square, I believe. Right?
Franklin Square, I believe, was on the list.
I think Hempstead, right?
I don't recall.
Rockville Center, most recently,
Rockville
just
Center,
last
right.
week.
So a lot of the surrounding villages have opted out. And as I said, opting out is reversible. Not opting out isn't reversible.
Thank you.
Actually, on that topic, Peter, I wondered also that, I'm not on.
Maybe the bottom.
Wait.
That is why.
All right, so NICOM had an excellent webinar on this topic, and they have a handout, and I wondered if we could make that available for residents who are interested in the topic to get some more information on it.
Certainly. Mr. Preston from my office, who's immediately behind me, and I were both in attendance at that presentation. Our office generally sends representatives up to the NICOM conference, and we were in attendance this year, and were present for that presentation. I believe we have that handout, and we have it, I believe, in electronic form, so that we can provide it to the board.
Right, it is 9 pages, but I think it's helpful for people who are interested. And I think John and Peter both pointed out some of the, kind of important takeaways for people. The village, one thing that I think there could be some confusion over is it's not opting out of legalizing marijuana.
Correct.
It's a very narrow, the decision the village will have to make is whether we want to opt out of two things, retail dispensaries or on-site consumption locations in the village.
Right, but...
And we could do one or both of them.
Right, but the smoking of marijuana is now, in the eyes of the law, perhaps a little overstated, the same as smoking a cigarette. Therefore, while the village is free under certain circumstances to ban all smoking, it cannot ban the smoking of cannabis product and allow the smoking of a tobacco product. They are either both allowed or both prohibited.
Okay. So we'll make that available, the handout, and I think it would be good for people who are interested to go through that before a public meeting. I think it'll just make it a better discussion at that time because we'll all be more informed.
Does that fact sheet that you're talking about distributing have information about tax revenue?
Yeah, so the
Yes, it
tax-
does.
It goes through that, and and I saw an article, I think it was on the Rockville Center, that was misleading, suggesting the villages would get 4%, which isn't the case. The 4% goes to the local government, gets sent to the county, the 4%, the county keeps 1%. The other 3% is split between the town and the village. So the NICOM presentation suggests it would likely be 1.5% of sales. Is that your understanding, Peter?
Yes, and it's the formula, as you'll recall, is a little bit more complex than that, but that's the basic structure. And it's not assumed that that would be a high volume of dollars for Garden City, but who knows?
I think my understanding is that overwhelmingly the dollars go to the state for distribution outside of, in this case, Garden City.
Yes, the state, that 4% is just for local. I read.
That's for the local sale. There are going to be, of course, fees for to obtain a license, and there'll be a whole range of taxation on it. But we're talking about the equivalent of a sales tax, even though they don't call it a sales tax.
And I think what John pointed out is important for everyone to realize it's a limited time option for us. If we don't opt out by December 31st, under the laws it's written, we can never opt out. If we do opt out, you can always opt back in. So I think that's an important thing for people to keep in mind as they're thinking their position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Any other comments?
Does the board wish me to recirculate or to circulate a proposed draft local law on that topic?
Yes. I think so, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Let's go to agenda items now. Are there any citizen comments on agenda items? Anybody in the audience? On any agenda item? Anyone on Zoom? All right. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes of the previous Board of Trustees meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 16, 2021 regular board meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? No. Motion passes. We now move on to the consent calendar. Is there anyone who would like to remove an item from the consent calendar for discussion? Seeing none, I now ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move. Consent calendar, Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I want to open up the floor to any citizen comments on non-agenda items only. Please state your name and your address, and if you have any from the audience, you come up to the podium. Please come up to the podium.
That's me, okay.
Mr. Lamberti.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So first thing, I'd like to congratulate the chief on his birthday. I won't ask him how old he is, but I'm 6 days away from my 91st birthday, so I'm going to tell you I have a long way to go. Now, I'm counting backwards, so think about that for the future. And thank you very much for the wonderful presentation you had on smoke alarms and fire alarms at the seat here, I think in another room back a couple of months ago. It was very well done. So I just, while we were just chatting, I have to tell you, I've lived here 64 years. It's hard to believe. And I started out as a shave tail in 1957, and my first job was working for Loring Hubble, who was the village council, and I stayed with him all the way through for about 34 years. And I worked here. It was our principal client. I developed a great love and affection for the village. I served as with the CPOA for the board, and I actually had 4 years as a trustee, and I commend them for their service and their work. And I don't know whether this is the swan song, but I want to thank everybody for being privileged to work here. So it's a great honor in many ways, and the service I had here, I enjoyed immensely. So anyway, why am I here? Okay, so I'm here to discuss a subject called legalization fee. And if everybody's eyes glaze over, don't worry about it, so did mine. And really what it means is, in its application, is if, in my instance, replace a unit, an air conditioning condenser, and take out an old one and discard it, it will cost me, hold your breath, $2,000 to legalize the air conditioning unit that's being discarded, and another $1,000 to put a new air conditioning unit in. That astonished me. But anyway, let me just sort of, that's the subject matter. And it all started when I bought a house, or a ranch house in 1986. I had it renovated, and I put on a second floor. So I have it, since this was an issue, since I can't get my air conditioning unit replaced because I didn't have a permit for the old air conditioning unit without paying $2,000. I thought it worth my while to go find out what this was about. So the house went up, and interestingly enough, as everybody knows, when you build a house or renovate a house, you have to get a building permit. So I got a building permit from Mike Philippon, who was then superintendent, or whatever the title was, and he tells me that before a certificate of occupancy can be issued, there must be inspections, which I understood, and he recites that included the building, plumbing, and electrical. I had to have those inspections, which I understood. So I sent my project out to a contractor who installed my heating system. I have a hot air system, HVAC, so I get heat through hot air, and I get cold air through the air conditioning. I thought that's what happened. The building was constructed. They inspected it. All the inspectors came. I got a certificate of occupancy in 19, so it's in 1992. And this is what it says. All the requirements of the zoning and the building code of the village have been met. I was relieved. I thought the heating, the air, all of it is approved. Now, the esteemed council says that I didn't have a permit for that air conditioning unit. Well, if my certificate of occupancy says I complied with the building code, if there was a building code requirement, it was approved. In my letter from the building department, they don't speak of heating and air conditioning. It's all part of the general inspection. So I would submit to you that your statement that I have an unpermitted air conditioning system unit is an error. All right, that's the start. Now we go on. So what do you do when you get told you have to pay $2,000 to discard an old air conditioning unit? You go to the building department, right? You go to an inspector, and you say to him, I don't understand this. I'm going to put in a new unit, and I'm going to improve the air conditioning system and comply with whatever environmental codes or whatever. And you're telling me I have to pay $2,000 for an old one that I'm going to discard? And he says, that's the law. That's what you have to do. I said, it doesn't make any sense. I'm going to take the air condenser unit out, and I'll come back and I'll tell you I just need a new permit. I won't tell you that. He said, no, that's the way it is. You have to do it that way. I said, really? Now I go up to the building superintendent. I say to him, Mr. Superintendent, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, I've been living here 64. This is a 30-year-old unit. It's got to be discarded. In fact, what the HVAC the man I hired, he said, listen, he said, you can fix it for $4,000 or $5,000. He said, doesn't make any sense. He said, because, among other things, the refrigerants are not going to be the same, and you're going to have an old unit, an old air handler, and you're going to have an inability to do the whole thing. That cost $10,000. Okay. Now I got $3,000 more to pay for fees. That's 30% of the project. All right. I got nowhere. Go to Mr. Swazi. It doesn't seem right. Read the law. It doesn't make any sense. No, that's the law. So they tell me I have to get a legal opinion from the esteemed counsel. So he writes, so this is what he writes. My understanding, you're going to replace the outside condenser, but keeping the interior balance of the system. Electrical elements, ducts, thermostats, coils, etc. We therefore believe you need to legalize it. Don't stop, don't ask. There's already existing HVAC system And this requires him to first legalize his already HVA system. That's the old one that I'm going to throw out. That was installed without a permit. As I said to you, I don't need a permit based on the certificate of occupancy that I had. That's just a piece of it. Requires him first to legalize his already HVA system. So now, what do? I go to the inspector. They say, listen, I don't understand this, that I have to legalize an HVA system. Coils, thermostats, electrical elements, ducts. So I said to him, look, I pay you the $2,000, all right? What are you going to do? He says, well, you got to get a permit for the new ones. Okay, so I get the permits for the new installation. Right, electrical, mechanical. And I said, then what happens? He says, well, he comes and installs it. Oh, okay. And what happens when he installs it? Well, we come down and inspect it. And what do you do when on the inspection? Well, he said, look, we make sure that the wiring, whatever it is, meets the code, whatever, and the air handler, if you put that in. I said, do you inspect the ducts? No, why would I inspect ducts? Do you inspect my thermostats? No, we don't inspect those. I said, I don't know about coils. I don't know what that means. But I said, do you go anything? No. So just think of it. You pay $2,000. You discard components of whatever it is of your system. All right? Nobody comes down to legalize the old system. The only thing they do is check the new system. I said, this is insane. This law is absurd. Now, having had the service that I had, I do the next thing. I read the code. And this is where, if I read this to you, you really close your eyes. No, let me find it. See it? All right, I'll read it. It's entitled Legalization Fee. Don't ask. Whenever a permit holder seeks to legalize work. Well, I said, that's easy. I'm not a permit holder. In fact, they're accusing me of not doing something without a permit. So how can this law or this section apply to me? Then it says, it's because you want to legalize the work that's been performed. Well, I didn't perform any work. I'm trying to perform the work that's installing a new system. Now, when you read a building code, you don't need to be a Talmudic scholar to figure out what it means. You take a look at the plain, simple language of the code. Words used in their natural meaning. If I were before a court and a judge would look at something, that's exactly what he would do. And you don't interpret a law, okay, to an absurd result. I don't think anybody in this room would look at this and think it made any sense, does it? I don't think anybody in this room if he were placing man or woman an air conditioning unit and was told to pay a fine, okay, to throw the old unit away and then pay a new fee to install it, you'd laugh. It's a joke. And you'd be angry. George Salem will tell you that story because it happened to him, right? And there are other people that it's happened to. A woman called me and said, you know, my friend cried when she went to the building department and was told that she had to pay $2,000 before she could even apply for new permits to put a new air conditioning machine in. It's absurd. Absolutely absurd. And people have paid that fine. Something's wrong. That's not the way residents of Garden City should be served. They're not cheaters. They're not scofflaws. They're people like me and you who put in the air conditioning unit, hired a contractor, assumed he did everything that he had to do, and then suddenly got penalized. That's a lot of money. There are a lot of people in this town you know, old people, like me, not as old. But a dollar counts. And to pay 30% of an installation on a determination that they didn't do what the law provided, nobody can tell me. I mean, I got a certificate of occupancy that says that I was fine. So why do we do this? How did this happen? How does such a bizarre thing get enacted into a building code which doesn't make sense, doesn't follow the English language, and is applied to people who are really good, honest people trying to comply with the law? How could this happen? Well, there are two trustees here who were involved in 2017 when this happened, Mrs. Delaney and Menudo. And I don't know whether Mr. B will speak to this issue, but that's fine. And you know why, basically? I won't go into the language construction and what other issues were up. It's a money raiser. That's what it's all about. It's about raising money. And in 2017, under the Dorney administration, building fees were doubled. George has the statistics. And you know why? Because to raise fees, you don't have to raise taxes. So therefore, you look prudent. And that's a wrong that needs to be corrected. Now, you need to take care of this law now, not for me. Okay, but there are many people that this law has been applied to. But you know what, you get into summertime, the air conditioner goes out and they say pay $2,000. George will tell you what it's like. You pay it and you move on. But I didn't move on, and I won't move on to see an injustice to the residents of this town with an absurd law that fines them when they're good people trying to do what's right for them. That I won't tolerate. You need to repeal this law, okay? I don't mean to point my finger at you, but there's no basis for it. You can look at the building codes throughout this county, and you'll find Garden City is an exception for this punishment. If you want to deal with permits, and you feel that everybody should get a permit, well, what you do is enact something that puts everybody on notice, gives them an opportunity to cure something that you think is wrong for safety reasons or otherwise. And you say, listen, we're doing this 6 months, come in, get a permit, and pay $150. To punish people with an outrageous penalty is just not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
George Salem, St. Paul's Place. In last week's Garden City News, Tom wrote a letter complaining about shocking building code fee increases, which he told you was $3,000 for his air conditioning. Tom's letter provoked me to write a similar letter that will appear in tomorrow's Garden City News. I will read some of the highlights of that letter and some private data I've obtained by reviewing last several years of annual reports. I too was ripped off this summer by an expensive, outrageous fee charged by the building department for a permit to replace my home air conditioning system. We originally installed it 20 years ago. When our current air conditioning contractor applied for the permit, he was told there'd be a penalty fee of $1,965 because there was no permit issued at the time of the original installation. Apparently, my former contractor never obtained a permit, a fact I was not aware of. Upon appealing the huge fee, I learned that the law is the law, and no permit would be issued for the new job until I paid the penalty fee. In addition to the penalty fee, I paid a regular permit fee of $455, bringing the total permit cost for my air conditioning replacement to $2,420. Since this occurred in early June of this year, the beginning of summer, I paid the rip-off amount rather than fight the building department and roast in my home all summer, and probably lose my case eventually. As a result of the local law enacted in 2017, April, was passed after public hearing that occurred. Some of the fees quadrupled as a result of the new local law. How could this have happened? That the Board of Trustees approved the new fee schedule as a result, in my opinion, and what I've heard, some bullying by a few mean-spirited trustees. Can we redo the law so that these fees are more realistic and acceptable? And refunds to the victims would be a good idea as well. The new board that's been on with us now since early this year has an opportunity to do a good thing. Finally, I hope the nightmarish experiences of Tom Lamberti, myself, and countless others are a lesson to us all. First and foremost, do not allow any home improvements without a permit. Secondly, lobby for a rollback of what has been 4 years of highway robbery by our trustees after the new law was passed in 2017. I did some research, as I said, on this topic, and I examined each of the last 6 Garden City annual reports from fiscal 15 through fiscal 20. Fiscal years end on May 31st. For the year 2015, the building department collected $900,000 in permit fees. That figure grew to $1.3 million in the year 2016, to $1.5 million in the year 2017, ending May 31st. In April 2017, Brian Dorney became mayor, and in October that year, the local law was passed to hike permit fees. Under the new law, permit fees rose dramatically in 2018 to $2.8 million, an 87% increase in just 7 months. In fiscal 2019, we saw another big hike, another big number of $2.5 million. And in the year 2020, partially because of COVID, the permit fees dropped to $1.9 million. Thus, for the 3 years after the new law became effective, the building department collected $7.2 million of permit fees, up 95%, or $3.5 million for the $3.7 million total for the 3 years prior to the fee hikes. For those last 3 years, since the new law became effective, 6,000 permits were issued by the building department, equal to more than 1 in every 4 residents of the village. My rough estimate is that the permit fee paid by each resident was between $1,000 and $1,500 per homeowner, probably double or more the permit fees paid in the years prior to the rate hike. I hope that the new board will investigate this scandal, correct the law, and refund amounts which Tom Lamberti has said to me are extortion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salmon. Giuseppe, are you on Zoom? Can we speak to you?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm on Zoom.
Giuseppe, you're the building superintendent. Can you give us an overview of this matter?
Yes, I'd like to start off with first Tom Lamberti. I want to wish him a happy birthday because my birthday is also in 6 days. So I just want to wish him a happy birthday on that end.
Everybody's got a birthday.
I get some chocolate. just to start off that, very briefly, Tom, wherever the date may be, you were a permit holder at that time. And as superintendent, the justification that can give a permit or revoke a permit or modify a permit at any time is through jurisdiction of the superintendent. So whether it was picked up in '86 or it's picked up now in 2021, is here or there. But what it states is you didn't have the benefit of an HVAC permit at that time, and that's what we noticed when you actually came in the file for that condenser. So with that condenser, you're applying for a permit for the HVAC. So it's a component of the application of the HVAC. So you have to justify everything, not just the condenser itself. So and as far as the inspections, yes, my staff comes out, we do inspect the wiring, we do inspect the thermostats. We also need to inspect by New York State law the smoke detectors and carbon monoxide in every aspect of the home. All right, so there are required inspections for that application. It's not just the inspection on the outside condenser. So just to make that clear, and as for the law is the law, and Peter B can actually express the law in more detail. But without the benefit of a permit, it's illegalized and maintained for that existing unit.
But, Giuseppe, this is the mayor. I have to ask you a question. What Mr. Lamberti said was that he had a certificate of occupancy that was granted for his house, right? The certificate of occupancy covers all aspects of building. It's an all-encompassing approval of the work. So if he was approved when he built the house, meaning everything was approved, structure, mechanical, all the systems were approved. Now he goes to replace the AC unit, right, which was the original AC unit. I believe that's what he said, that was the original AC unit. So why would he need he would just need a new permit for the unit?
Well, what comes along with that permit is the electrical inspection, and that electrical inspection was not noted that it said clearly HVAC system. So it's not noted there. So that means that it wasn't a third-party inspection, it was the electrical work. So that has to be included in that application. And if we don't have documentation, if you can prove documentation that I can bring to my office, so I can state that this was part of that inspection from a third party, then we can look at that. But
Well,
I have not.
I think you need to review the certificate of occupancy that he has, right? To make sure that the certificate of occupancy lists all the components of the house. Because that's what the C of O does.
That's correct.
All right?
That's
And also verifies the zoning district.
Right.
Yes.
So that's what you should be doing.
That's fine.
Can he do that, Mr. Mayor, and report back to you so that we can move on to other topics?
Yes.
Well, I'd like them to report back to the board. So,
Absolutely.
Will do.
So
Because
I
if
just
other
want-
people, again, if other people are realizing the same issue that Mr. Lamberti's realizing, there could be a problem. There could be a problem with the language. I mean, the idea of being a permit holder, when you're not a permit holder, maybe the word permit holder has to be modified. Maybe the law has to be amended. I mean, someone has to review this. So I would recommend that the building superintendent, in conjunction with Peter B. and village administrator, review this issue.
Okay, let's move on.
Thank you.
Very well.
Any other comments on non-agenda items? Please come up to the podium, sir. State your name and address.
John Casamatis, 46 Mulberry Avenue. It's several folds. I've lived here a long time, wonderful village. I call the village hall to voice a complaint about work being done on Mulberry Avenue. Nobody answers the phone. Absolutely no one. No one picks up the phone. Only Karen in the mayor's office is the only lady who picks up the phone. Everybody's on voicemail, will call you back. Well, very few ever call you back. That's complaint number one. Number two, you hire contractors to pave the streets during a pandemic where most senior citizens are on fixed incomes. And the way they're paving them, it's going to cost us thousands of dollars. You hire a subpar contractor, a lousy job, no manpower, every excuse under the sun, and you're using contracts from 30 years ago. update your contracts.
That's not true.
Dirty job. They ripped up my sprinklers. They broke the apron on my driveway. My apron wasn't going to get done. They ripped up the apron. They redid all the streets, and then they broke my driveway. 4 times they came to repair my driveway. Didn't pass my inspection. And on my property, it's my inspection that counts.
Sir, did you contact the village administrator about this?
Did I what?
Did you contact the village administrator?
Finally, yes, I did.
Okay, what did he say to you?
I picked up the phone.
Yeah, he picked up the phone. We finally picked up the
That's a
phone.
start. Okay, what did you say, Ralph?
You know, I had 18 people in my staff office when I was working, and they all had to pick their phones up between 8 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. This voicemail stuff is ridiculous. But update your contracts. This contractor is horrible. Dirty, filthy. They didn't bring enough traffic cones to put over spots where cars ripped up their bottoms from sewer covers being too high. And the job's taken months, since May, to pave one street. The other contractor who did Franklin Avenue did it in a week. It's ridiculous.
Do you have any other comments?
No.
Okay, Ralph, can you respond to this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. So, first of all, Mr. Cosmatos, I talked to you yesterday. I spoke to the engineer immediately following. He's not wrong about the length of time this job is taking. Trustee Delaney, who lives along that roadway, has been asking me every week when this is going to be completed and paved. So, I won't make excuses for the contractor, but I can tell you that the contractor owner is an owner I'm familiar with. They have a great reputation. When they started this contract over on St. James and Chestnut, they did outstanding work. Very pleased. They did have labor issues. I had them in my office. I actually had a meeting with them, a prearranged meeting before the gentleman who just spoke called me yesterday. I had a prearranged meeting today at 3:30, which I held with the engineer and 2 representatives of the company. The one who was out there in the field yesterday during the paving, I was out there myself. Our engineer was watching them pave. They had about 7 or 8 people there, including the owner. And I asked them what went on here. There were some over the last 3 weeks. They milled, they did base repair, and they paved. I still think that was too long. It should have done it in a week and a half. Prior to that, we had a 7 or 8 week delay on the castings, the COVID-related supply chain issues. That ate up a couple of months. In the beginning, they had labor issues. Mayor, you're an architect. Anyone who's involved with any construction going on in their homes, labor has been hard to secure. They pay their workers the same money all the other contractors who are doing roads are paying. It's a union rate. The problem is that people who needed manpower were offering people from other firms 5,000, 10,000 sign bonuses, and these guys just didn't show up to work. So we halted the work because I didn't want them just putting warm bodies out there and giving me really, inexperienced road work crews. So we had delays, and I can't make up the time. That Mulberry started probably in May, and it just got completed today. Now, and also yesterday, Mr. Cosmatos, I think is his name, he called about some of the subpar work right in front of his home, number 46, and his neighbor, Charlie, I know his last name, is an old transit guy. He came down to my office last week with a broken casting, but the road is not finished. Every contractor, I don't care how good you think they are, there's a punch list. The punch list items will take care of these other things.
Sounds like this is a big punch list.
Well, no, every road has a punch list.
It sounds like there are a lot of issues.
Well, he didn't actually call out the issues he talked about were delays and dirtiness, and sprinkler heads get broken all the time. If they break an apron that wasn't supposed to be done, they repair it at that cost. So things happen. So I can't explain away the whole thing, but I do know there were defined, documented labor issues. It's not just with this contract. We've had problems with a lot of our capital projects.
The contracts have been updated. You said they've not been updated. Sure, there was a new contract. Brand new contract.
We update our contracts. There's some old language there. Peter B. and I spoke about this with the engineer. Was it this morning, Peter? There are some items that they put in there to handle situations like this. But this contractor started off very well, and then everything went wrong. And some of the things were within his control, and we talked about those things today, and things that are outside his control we talked about, and we will take care of the issues on Mulberry. We also had some complaints from Brixton, just to be transparent about this, on south of the tracks. But I had no complaints anywhere else in the village where the roads were done. So it just could be the wrong place, the wrong time, right place.
It sounds like it's one of those mishaps, but again, you have to focus on making sure the job gets done with the contract, and the quality of work has to be acceptable.
Right, the engineer, our engineer who oversees this program, John Baroni, our senior engineer, he knows what he's looking for. He told me they had the acre out yesterday. It was not subpar work, but there were issues that were resolved during the punch list. So I have confidence that'll be the case.
Mayor, I live on the corner of Mulberry. I live diagonally across the street from Mr. Casamanis. And I have been on top of this situation. Mr. Casamanis is right about the delays. The road had to be remilled because of the poor work that they did the first time through. And what's surprising is, as the village administrator, Mr. Swazi, says, that work that they've done in other areas of the village has been first class. I understand from the village engineer, John Baroni, who has been on top of this. I've seen him there almost every day. They have lost qualified help. I'm not trying to make excuses for them, because I suffered as Mr. Casamatis did. This has been going on since May. And all we can do now is, with this punch list, is make Mr. Casamatis as whole as we can for any errors that this contractor cost us. But it's been a shock to me, because I've seen the work that they've done in other areas. They fell apart on this one. And I think that without going into the legal ramifications of this, I think that the village is taking certain steps to minimize this in the future. Unfortunately, that doesn't help us today.
Ralph, do you anticipate any change orders?
No, not for this contract. No, we had a change order back on St. James and Chestnut for drainage, because the drainage sizes in our big contract were too large for the underground infrastructure that we found in the area, so we had a change order months ago. I've asked the engineer to upgrade the contract and specs to include all the different size rings, so that we don't have to go back to the board for change orders for industry standard things that are used off.
I just don't want to see any change orders because of this contractor's particular delays, or lack of manpower, or lack of material.
There will not be any change orders. We had a company Jesus talk today.
Okay.
I feel confident.
Mr. Swazi, is there a timeline associated with the punch list and the conversations you had today?
I don't have the punch list. I can find out tomorrow, and I can advise the board. They have 2 remaining roads in Garden City, Adams Street from Stewart Manor up to Stratford, and also from Stratford at Mass Boulevard over to Hampton Road. These are 2 remaining roads for this contract.
Okay. Are there any other citizen comments on non-agenda items? Please come up.
My name is Susan Marks, and I live at 67 Hilton. I'm here tonight representing a lot of the Hilton Hall residents. We've been living with blue water for almost 6 months, and I did bring pictures, because pictures are much better than my conversation. And I just wanted to give some highlights of what's been going on. We had no laundry room for 5 weeks, and it has since reopened, and we've been told to use it at our own risk. We did find out through conversation that there's another building in town, 223 7th Street, that also has blue water. We're not sure if there's anybody else that has it. Hilton Hall Management did hire an environmental consultant, and they've been testing our water. To date, the last information we received was that it was safe for us to drink it. They did reach out to Garden City through a FOIL request to get information from H2M on what their test results say. We were told that they received a small percentage of what they asked for, and so far that's all they know. So after the last board meeting in September, some of the residents went to Mr. Swazi explaining our concern of we're getting, he said, she said, you know, we're not getting all the information that we feel we should get. He offered to set up a meeting with myself to represent the residents of Hilton Hall Management, their environmental consultant, himself, and H2M, to really go through and what do you have, what is this all about? The meeting was set up for September 29th. I was invited, and it had to be rescheduled. I didn't receive another email on the revised date, so I reached out to Mr. Swazi, and I have since been uninvited to attend the meeting. So I'm just speaking here tonight because I know the board's platform is total transparency between the village and the residents. And we just, you know, as I said, as you look at the pictures, this is not something you should be living with in Garden City.
I agree. I mean, this is horrific from what I see. Ralph, are you on top of this?
Yes, Mayor. So, hello, Ms. Marks. After the last meeting, I believe the residents of 67 Hilton were at the last meeting, and when you called for non-agenda item comments, I don't believe they heard you, so after the meeting, they surrounded me, and I requested that I communicate with Ms. Marks rather than communicate with 97 different residents on the same topic. And I did the next day, the 17th, I reached out to Ms. Marks, I believe, to get the consultant's name, Mr. Scott Gresson, I think his name is, I don't have the actual spelling, to set up a meeting, find out what it is he needed. They also communicated to me that he received a subset of the information he had put into a FOIA request, which I didn't understand because we always reply. I contacted our consultants at H2M. I said, did you give them what they needed? He goes, we gave them what we were asked for. So I figured there was a communication problem there. So after I set the meeting for September 29th, I got a call from a Mr. Messinger. He's an attorney, but he wasn't calling as an attorney to represent legal issues. He was calling as the representative of the building. So I set up a meeting. He couldn't make it till today.
Does he represent management?
He represents the LLC that manages the building, and my understanding from communications with him is that they regularly communicate with all the residents, and Ms. Marks is here representing some residents, but I'm not sure if that's the whole building. But nonetheless, now that I had contact with the building, my first contact, by the way, was gratis of the contact information Ms. Marks gave to me, and then Mr. Messinger speaking to me. Prior to that, I only had an email from a woman named Tracy back in late May, which I sent immediately to H2M. So H2M's been on the case since June. I don't really think I own April and May because I didn't know about it until I got the email. And I think the reason that is because after our discussion today, in the room was Mr. Messinger, their consultant Scott Gresson. I had Peter B was there, even though it wasn't a legal meeting. I thought it was best to have Peter B there. And I had 4 consultants, engineers, water engineers from H2M and myself. So there were 7 people in the room.
So you have this meeting today?
What's causing the blue water, Ralph, do you know?
So the blue water is I'm not a water engineer, but what I learned today is a few things. Number one is, I think through the April-May timeframe, before the village was officially alerted by the residents, the building itself was doing its due diligence. They didn't know, as we still don't know right now, if it was inside the building, outside the building, or both. So they were taking steps internally to eliminate possibilities. And by what they went through today, they made very good choices on reducing the velocity of the water, warm water that circulates. They had an electrolysis analysis done, which I called on PSCG to do. They've already done one. Electrolysis is when electricity comes in contact with a copper pipe and deteriorates the copper. Usually creates a hole in it, so you have to replace the pipe. But a low current might allow copper particles to get into the water. The copper, especially in warm water, integrates with things like laundry detergents, creates a blue tint. So we kind of know what the chemistry is, but we're not sure what's causing it. So after meeting today with the consultants, and one of the things we wanted to clear up was this misinformation, that we foiled this, we didn't get that, because I got a letter from Ms. Messinger, then there was a FOIA request from the consultant, and then there was a response from our consultants. They gave him the data, but what he wanted was the actual raw data from the labs, not the data reported in a chart that they produced. So they got the data, but not in the form they wanted it. So we're not hiding anything, and there's no mystery here. Everything's public record. So what I learned today is that, first, number one, we weren't collaborating before because I didn't even know there was a problem until May. They were going about their business, we were going about our business. Both their test and our test show the water is potable. So the aesthetic discoloration of blue seems to be the problem. Where is that coming from? After today's meeting, we decided that they would go back and do a more extensive electrolysis analysis. Instead of taking a snapshot, they'd run a meter for 72 hours to see if there's any fluctuations or other indicators. They told us what they did inside the building, how they were chasing the ghost. On our side, the other two buildings that Ms. Marks mentioned too, and I heard from her last month, 227 7th Street, those buildings have never reported to us they had a blue water condition. So today we asked the consultant, I guess there's like a grapevine of superintendents of buildings that talk among each other, but they weren't talking to us. So tomorrow we have HFM going to the 227 building, and there's another building next door. They're both served by the same water main. He'll be doing extensive tests on copper, pH. So we don't know what the answer is. There's no smoking gun here. But I want to let you know that the building, I learned today, that the building management was working on this problem. They continue to work on it. We have been working on it. We have not let it slide. We did have a pH problem, which I told the board back in August. pH is supposed to be neutral. When it's too low, it's acidic. When it's too high, it's alkaline. And those conditions could also cause deterioration of the copper in the water. So we've already adjusted that. So we're taking more samples from our own water system. And this is all playing out on the stage with the LP systems coming online, being tested with 5 of our wells offline under construction. So even the flows of the water, everything's changed. So we're...
Does the Wyndham across the street have any problem?
No, we haven't heard from any. By the way, while I have the public's attention, if you have a blue water issue, you should notify us. So A, we can pay attention to it, and B, it might help us figure out what's going on. Because right now, we only have the one building, and when we contacted the other building today, the superintendent told my engineer, we get blue water every day. I'm like, so you've been living with this problem since some time going back, and you haven't told us about it. So we're working on it. I don't have an answer to it.
Why is H2M taking so long on this though? I mean, what is their opinion on it? Because, you know...
They're not taking too long. First of all, as I told you, we didn't learn about it until May, and they jumped on it in June. They tested the water.
But it's still a few months.
It's
I
October.
understand that, but I also heard today from Mr. Messinger and his consultant that during the summer months, the blue water subsided. They took care of the electrolysis problem a week and a half ago. They made some other changes in their building, and the problem went away for most of the summer, and then it popped up again. So it's intermittent.
So just to be clear, so at Hidden Hall, the building right next door, are they also having blue water?
The addresses I have are, I got these addresses
The
today.
report we also got said construction was done in some of the buildings replacing piping, so the next question is, did that happen in both these buildings?
Well, so when you put a new copper, one of the buildings I was told has no copper, but do have a copper service line. So it's not totally devoid of copper. So that's how this information gets around. This building has no copper. It's not the copper. There is copper in the path of the water. Whether it's not is the problem is yet to be determined. So HCOM has been working on this. They're taking tests. The test is, you know, first of all, I have 10,000 water customers, Trustee Chester. 10,000 water customers, lawyers, doctors, businesses, trustees, all the residents. The building, only one building reported. So logically, if you're just someone with no engineering or water training, if one building's complaining, you would think it's localized. So that's why the building probably took 2 months of their own time to figure it out. Once we got engaged from the resident side, we started working on it independently. Now we're collaborating. And by the way, I don't care where the problem lives. We're chasing the data down because if it's in the building, they'll fix it. If it's outside the building, we'll fix it. It might be a combination of little things. The electrolysis could play a role. The hot water velocity could play a role. And when you put new pipes into condos and apartments, those pipes have to form a coating on the inside called patina. And sometimes some of these things we're talking about can reverse the process, even though the pipe had time to develop patina. So there's a lot of little things going on here.
Ralph, can I just make a quick comment?
And Ms. Marks, you may be able to help us with this. My takeaway, not an engineer, was that H2M believed, the building management believed, and the village administration currently believes that this is an intermittent problem, that it is not 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, blue water coming out of the faucet.
That's correct.
It is intermittent, it is not constant.
But it's.
But one of the
it's-
problems that
it's-
H2M expressed to us was that they might get a blue water complaint in an apartment 27. By the time they got someone there to inspect it, it wasn't blue anymore. So there were issues in terms of when is there a report of blue water and when can someone get there to find out what the problem was. And, you know, again, it was a fairly technical discussion, and without being a chemist, it appeared that there could be elements of the water going in that are reacting with elements of the system inside the building. And so it potentially is not just what's in the building and potentially not just what's coming into the building, it's the way those things are interacting with each other. It would be very helpful, H2M and the building consultant said, if it turns out that the blue water is appearing elsewhere, that would be helpful to know, because we could then track what is happening in the village water system, what's the timing of it, when are the wells going on or offline. It would aid in the ability to find out the cause if we are being told all the time of every instance of blue water. And on the one hand, that's inviting complaints, but yes, we're inviting complaints. We need to hear about them in order to track down the problem.
How long does it take before the water subsides?
It varies, it depends, you know.
Like
and-
sometimes if you have brown water, you run
Yeah.
cool, and it subsides. But
I don't really know, you know, but again, it's, as
We're-
Mr.
we're-
B is saying, it's some, you know, we can go a week with nobody having it, and then the next week.
We were told today, and again, you live there, so you know best. We were told today, there has not been a complaint of blue water in at least a month.
I don't think people.
Yeah, that's not true.
No, I'm not saying there hasn't been blue water.
Right.
I'm saying no one's told anybody about the blue water in over a month. So that makes it, again, there's a component here where people think, okay, maybe the problem's gone away. So if there's blue water tomorrow, please contact the village, let us know that.
My name is Kathy O'Hara, and I live in the building. I'll try to speak loud. There's 2 points I want to make. One is that we tell the building.
Please come up.
What's that?
We're on the same page.
We're on the same page.
We reported to the building, but they're not doing anything about it. This has been going on for since April, and now this is October. And the thought about them communicating with us is it's not regular, it's random. And it's when they feel like it. And that's why we've come to you, Mr. Swazi, because the building is not servicing us the way it should. And the last thing is I just want to say is that if it's sporadic, in the meantime, between this happening, I'm drinking that water out of the tap. And that's really what I'm worried about. You know, that I have to wash my hair with blue water. Okay, that doesn't bother me so much. But I'm taking water from the tap that's blue. I don't know what it's doing inside my body.
And we have young children in the building. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean,
No, and believe me, I take it seriously. Like I said, to explain the timeline, the first 2 months, I was told last month it went back to April. When I got the email, it went right to H2M, and they started working on it. I have water in the building. There's no blue water in our sinks, in our urinals, in our toilets, in our fountains. Like I said, I have 10,000 customers. There's something going on in the vicinity of this building and those other buildings. Maybe it's just related to 7th Street. You know, we've had problems on 7th Street with water lines businesses have where they deteriorate. The copper lines have deteriorated. We never could pinpoint it. You got the railroad half a block away. You have a Verizon current going down the south side of the street. So there might be other factors here that have nothing to do with the building or with our water supply. But we are chasing it. We are trying to check. There's no smoking gun. If I had a smoking gun, we fix it. I want Ms. Marks to know and trustees to know and the public to know that we are now collaborating with the other side because we didn't know each other until I made the phone call on the 17th. And this meeting got arranged so that all participants that were there, that could be there. And it was a very technical discussion, talking about RPZs and talking about pinholes and talking about chemistry and talking about alkalinity. And we're conducting some tests tomorrow in 2 other buildings. We're following up with tests of our system. They're conducting an extended electrolysis test. And we're going to share the data. Mr. Messinger gave his consultant permission to talk freely to our consultants, and I gave my consultants permission to talk to them freely, just as long as it takes, and they would keep me apprised. So I would keep the board apprised. And I would keep Ms. Marks apprised. But Ms. Marks, I also, only because I know you represent a group of residents, but I have to make sure I keep the building management apprised, because they'll communicate.
That's fine, but I don't understand why I can't hear firsthand. You know, I'm a college-educated person. I was in business for over 40 years. I would just like to hear all of the facts, because a 2-hour meeting is going to be condensed into 2 pages to the residents.
One point of clarification from Peter and from Ralph. Did I understand you to say that the management of the building told you that there hasn't been a blue water problem in the last month?
A representative of the building, I believe, is present in the room right now, but that is correct. My understanding, my takeaway from the meeting today was that management has not received a complaint of blue water in over 1 month. Now, again, if I misunderstood something that was said, then I believe a building management representative is present and can correct me.
It's what I said. I'm here.
Have you had a complaint in the last month of blue water?
We have not.
Well, then I would suggest that you assign somebody from the management to talk to these folks so that they can every day tell you when they have a blue water problem.
Yeah, we've given up. I mean,
Well, you can't give up. I mean, you can't give up. You got to talk to management, because they're telling us there isn't a problem, and now we find out there is a problem.
No, building management acknowledges there's a problem. And I think, Ms. Marks, everybody agrees it isn't yet fixed, because whatever is causing it to not be blue today could come back tomorrow. But just because the problem isn't fixed yet doesn't mean that people aren't doing something about it. I can assure you, based on the meeting I was at today, that both H2M and building management have been trying to figure out what the problem is. They haven't figured it out yet, and they can't fix it till they know what the problem is. But it is being examined. I can't answer.
Just recently. I mean, until we went to Mr. Swazi 3 weeks ago.
Again, I got involved in about the last 72 hours, but I can tell you that the meeting today ended with all of us agreeing to collaborate on trying to figure out where this problem comes from. I was astonished to hear that one of the things that needs to be investigated is the possibility of some extremely low level of voltage coming from the Long Island Railroad, and that could be affecting the pipes, which changes something else, and that changes something else, and that changes the chemistry, and all of a sudden the water's blue. So I learned more about blue water today than I ever wanted to know, but
why would all of this be happening in the last 6 months?
that was another piece that was raised today, is how could this have...
So that's why I would like to hear all these questions.
We don't have those answers yet. I was told that pipes can deteriorate over time, that there are a lot of things that can happen over time, and also other things. It's the convergence of events. That's one of the reasons why we need to know about complaints of blue water anywhere else. How can we time that with wells going on and offline? How can we time that with one main being open or another main being open? How can we time that with the passage of a freight train going by? What are the collection of things happening that when they hit together simultaneously, all of a sudden there's blue water? But in order to do that, please, both building management and the village want to know about any and every instance of blue water, every day.
Okay. Well, the building, I guess you're representing the building management, maybe you could tell them to reach out to all the residents, exactly saying who the contact person would be and any blue water.
So I've seen emails from you. So I've seen emails from you. What I understand, we're trying to track down the problem too, right? We hear about all sorts of blue water in other buildings, right? It makes it a very complex problem because we have not received any complaints except people being disinvited to meetings, which doesn't help solve the problem. So if you are experiencing blue water in our building, we want to hear from you. You should report that to the town or to the village, and you should report it also to the management. I know you have Mike's email. I will provide you my email too, because we want to know. I will provide it to you. And what it is that we want to know when you experience it. But we also want everybody who lives in the village, if you're getting blue tinted water, you need to report that too. It helps us with all that information try to figure out where it is that the source of the problem is. And it might not be one problem, it might be a million little things, right?
So
we
just-
need to know what all those things
Okay,
are.
but based on our meetings with management, there's 106 residents, apartments in the building. It has never been said to us, please continue to tell us every single time there's a blue water problem. They basically said, we
Yeah, we
know there's a
told
blue
them,
water,
yes.
there's a blue water problem, we know it,
To
we're
the
working on
extent
it.
that you didn't know to report it before, that's fine. But now I'm telling you, and you can tell all the people
Yeah,
that
but
you
I'm not,
represent.
I need management to tell all the
Can I
residents.
step in?
Yeah, I know.
No, that's okay. I think that, like any project, you have to have a communication plan. So the management, I asked you as the manager and other people involved, the company that's doing the evaluation, and Ralph, to set up a communication plan for the residents in the building, so that they know who to call, they know how to report it, and that we can come to a conclusion, later on. But you have to have a good communication plan, and I'm hearing that it's lacking at this point.
Okay.
So I'll take responsibility for all the complaints I receive, but if management's gonna play a role here, they're gonna play a role. They're either in or they're out. I don't, oh. First of all, anyone who wants to get a hold of me and can't is not trying hard. My email address is on the website, so everyone can email me.
You've been very
Yes.
open.
So the thing is that, like I said, at the beginning, I think after today's meeting, I believe that the management team has been in earnest trying to fix this. Whether they're communicating at the level you need them to, I think that needs to be stepped up over there. But we're going to report everything to their side, and then report to us. I think I put out one communication to the residents, because I don't want to put out 3 facts and put out 1 fact or 4 facts. We want to talk with one voice. So we'll work that out together. How it gets to everyone else, I'll give it to you, Ms. Marks, and I expect.
No, I'm not representing 106.
Right, that's why Mr. Messinger, when I got the attorney involved, even though it wasn't a legal discussion, I didn't know that until we had the meeting today. We discuss hundreds of problems a year on behalf of the residents. They don't have resident participants. Even though this problem is much more personal to everyone, it's still, to me, it's another problem we have to solve. So we're working on it. I just want to let you know, it wasn't 3 weeks ago I started working on this. I started working on it in May when I got that first email. And when you do lab tests, it takes 2 weeks to turn it around, then it comes back normal. Okay, so it wasn't the chemistry, and then we started with further solutions. Then we found the pH level, we solved it. Then the complaints went away. We thought it was resolved, so we lost a month and a half there. So I want to let you know, Trustee Chester, HCOM is doing the job we asked them to do, and so are their consultants. But now we're doing it as a team, a collaborative team. And I apologize, Ms. Marks, for disinviting you.
No, you don't.
I probably shouldn't have invited you in the first place. I just wanted to solve the problem, and I have no problem being transparent. I'm transparent every time I speak.
Well, again, I still don't understand why you got invited, but that's.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Here's your pictures. Your pictures.
Oh, you want your pictures?
Oh,
They're right there. Thanks very much.
excuse me? All different times, he's worked from June, September.
Thanks. Thanks.
Any other comments?
Thank you, sir.
Non-agenda items? Seeing none? What about Zoom? Any comments from people who are on Zoom, please?
Yes, my camera is not on, but may I speak?
Yes, please state your name and address.
Sure. Name is Robert Vasilati, 32 Brixton.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I guess I could put the video on for a minute. Okay, so, it's another topic that I've been involved with a bit with the Long Island Railroad and Catherine Heaviside, who's one of the reps for the community outreach, and also with Bruce Chester. I'm not sure if he's there tonight.
I am.
Oh, yes, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
we've
and
communicated
so-
back and forth.
Yes, and it's regarding, Maryland Avenue Station and the current condition over there. Obviously, it's a work in progress, but it's a bit of a disastrous work in progress, if you ask me. I was raised on Wellington Road, back since 1950, 3 houses away from that railroad. And it concerns me, my daughter lives 7 houses away in Houston. But the primary concern is, besides some of the design elements, which perhaps is a little late to change now, but you know, when you look at the elevator buildings there, you've got red brick with blue brick. I don't know how that happened. They told us they were going to use red brick, you know. But, you know, obviously everyone's focused on the poles, you know, the 90-foot poles, which I appreciate that as well. But I'm looking at other things that, you know, really point to the, you know, everyday pedestrian and commuter use, especially now that more and more people are going back to work. But there's a lot of safety issues there that I think you better look at very soon. Namely crossings. You know, people trying to cross Nassau Boulevard, north and south of the trestle. I mean, anything goes. There's hardly any markings. There's one automated sign to cross on the furthest south side of Nassau Boulevard. As you move north, there's no other crossing light or signal. You know, the green and blue and the green walking man and everything. And then when you go north of the trestle, there's no crossing situation at all with painted lines or signage or anything. I mean, I think we have to involve Nassau County on some of this since it's a county road. The other crossing dangers are on Main Avenue. When you start to look on the south side, you know, Main Avenue on the south side of the tracks, the Garden City side, from Nassau Boulevard all the way down to Meadbrook, the platforms, as people exit coming in from the city, they spill off right into Main Avenue there. There's no sidewalk that's been designed. You come off the train platform and you're right out into the street, into traffic. At night, it's very dangerous. The crossings that were there don't line up with now where the exits come off the platforms. And so, you know, originally, well, there was temporary platforms. They had crossing lines painted. They had special signs, vertical signs that said, you know, state law, stop for pedestrians. That's all messed up now. The lines are messed up. Some crossings don't have any lines. It's very dangerous for pedestrians to get off that railroad, particularly at night, and for vehicles to recognize the fact that people are spilling out into the street. Now, of course, you're not having a lot of people spilling out into the street because not a lot of people are commuting. But when that train was really active, or when it gets active again, you know, in the evening hours, you can have people all over the streets, core crossings, and it really needs to be addressed. You know, the other thing there is that, you know, the basic construction of this project is rather ugly. The south side looks like a whole series of columns along the platform. And then add that to the poles that we have. We have 90-foot poles, we have wooden poles, and now we have all these columns that just stick up along the platform. The whole thing is horrible. There's no roof on the south side of the tracks except for intermittent roofing. If you look at Belmont, as I take the train past and go past Belmont, the new platforms there are quite beautiful. Belmont got the best station. Maybe there was a lot of money there. But all I can tell you is that Belmont has roofing and windscreens on both sides of the tracks, all the way down. It's all red brick. The roof is consistent. There's no funny columns sticking up all along the south side of the tracks, which is what we ended up with now, is these columns everywhere. And I urge every trustee, I urge the mayor, I urge our administrators to go and just walk that area as if you're going on and off the train. It is bad right now. Now I know it's still under construction, but I'm really concerned about what's going to be left. And not to mention, I really hope that the landscaping is done right when it's all over. But there's a lot that needs to be looked at there and addressed, and someone needs to sit down with them. And I'd be happy to sit with you and or some other reps from the railroad and go over some of these issues. But a lot of these things are accidents waiting to happen, and there's also design elements that are pretty horrific.
Robert, this is Bruce Chester. I know you've emailed me some pictures of what you're talking about. I'm well aware of it. I've been up and down that block at Main Avenue a million times. Each month, the railroad has meetings with the elected officials or community leaders of all the communities involved along the 9.8 mile trek. And I have continuously told them about the lights, about the platform, about the mess that they basically leave. And sometimes it's addressed. I think a couple of things that you sent to me, I sent over to Travis Brennan, who's the public relation person for Third Track Constructors, the ones that are doing this Third Track project. Also, I had heard from some commuters, some older woman that had some big problems, and I got that over to Leslie Mesnick. The lights I've talked about for, as I say, 2 or 3 monthly meetings, and I basically get crickets. The other things, some of the things have been taken care of. The containers at the end of Meadbrook have been taken care of. So what I would suggest, first of all, if you could send some things over to me. I do have a Third Track committee that I'm chairman of, and I certainly would like to invite you to our next meeting, which I expect to have within a week, where you can bring these things up. Rich Carrero, as president of Revamp, is someone you might want to reach out to too. But these are all valid complaints that we've been dealing with for a while. So I want to thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yes, and thank you for listening, and thank you for receiving that email with the many, many pictures that I did send you.
Yes.
But I do appreciate you sifting through those. But just thank you. So if you could let me know, I'd be happy to attend that meeting if it works with my schedule. But thank you very much, and I do appreciate everyone listening tonight about this issue. But I really do think it's important. It affects a lot of homeowners along that line, and there's just a tremendous amount of safety issues that are just kind of, again, some of it involves, I think, the county as well as us along Main Avenue. That's our road, but the county road on Nassau is certainly something that they have to be involved in.
Yeah, it would be. And Main Avenue is a problem because I've picked my daughter up from the train there numerous times, and it's dark, there's no sidewalk, so it's a tough situation.
Right.
But
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
Just a quick question. Bruce, did I hear that on the construction of the walls, there's cracks in it?
yeah, there have been some which I pointed out to them at a meeting, and I got a lot of pushback on it, so, but I will continue to do that.
In general, it's a mess. The resident is correct. It's a horrific design and it's a mess.
It is.
So hopefully we can do something about this.
Yeah.
Any other comments from the people who are on Zoom, please? No other comments? Okay, I ask for motion to close the meeting then?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for coming. Mary?